What if you could take that risk, make that change, reach that goal, live your best life? Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast, where we get together with amazing experts and everyday people who share challenges, encourage healing, and explore the possibilities that life has to offer. I'm your host, Gary Scott, and I'm excited that you're along for the ride. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast. And joining me today is a strapping young man, John Brink. Welcome, John.
Well, thanks, Gary, and be glad to be on your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. If it's okay with you, I'm going to read your introduction and then we'll get cooking.
I like it.
Awesome. Awesome. Everybody, today's guest is John Brink, and John was born in Nazi-occupied Holland at the beginning of the Second World War. From the time he could walk, his days often consisted of foraging for food with his brother and sister. His mother was left to raise the three kids alone when their father was drafted into the Dutch army. They wouldn't know if he was alive until the liberation of their village by Canadian soldiers on April 12th, 1945. This was the exact moment John determined he would make his life in Canada, the land of his heroes. He was only 5 years old. Like many others who lived through that time, John has lived his entire life with the effects of post traumatic stress disorder resulting from being in a war zone. And like he loves to share, he even has a sign made up that he left with after he got out of the army with $25.47 in his pocket. And today, I think he might be a magnet. So we're going to find out. John's going to let us in on the scoop. So thank you, sir. Welcome again.
Yeah, thank you, Gary.
Like I said, I don't have questions. Um, no one wants to hear from me. Everyone wants to hear from Mr. John Brink, so I'm just going to let you go. But I do have one opening question that I ask my guests because we are the What If You Could podcast. Do you have a what if you could moment that hits you at one time, or if you have a what if you could thought for us, what might that be?
Well, the dream that I always had from the time that I was 5 years old, that I would go to the land of my heroes and the country that liberated Holland, the Second World War. Then when things were extremely difficult, was to go to the land of my heroes, Canada. And so that was the one dream that I had. The second dream was that academically I was not a success story. I failed grade 3 and I failed grade 7 3 times. I did not realize for 50 years until I was diagnosed with ADHD that those were some of the challenges that I had along the way. So I made things difficult for myself. I wanted to go to Canada. I tried to go when I was 17, but in Holland, we were then drafted into Army, Air Force, Marine, and I was drafted into the Air Force for 2 years. And then I finally started to get ready to go to Canada when I was 23. And I wanted to start with nothing. And my grandfather was a master carpenter. My dad worked in the lumber industry. And I wanted to prove to me that I was just as good as all the other kids, not better than, as just as smart. But as you well know, that when I left grade 7, after failing it for 3 times, we were kind of looked down on. I then became a laborer at the age of 12. And so, my friends that went on to college and university became very, very successful. And I was already doing well, but I didn't feel as well as I could or should. I didn't understand why was I different. And so I then had the dream, go to Canada and then build my own lumber mill. But I wanted to start with nothing. And I had one suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and I had By the time I got off the bus in northern British Columbia, where all the timber is, in July 1975, with my suitcase, my 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, I counted my money at least 3 times. I had $25.47. But what I had lots of is attitude. No matter how tough things are, I avoid the negative. I always believe tomorrow is going to be a better day. And then I have passion. Whatever I do, I give it 150%. And then work ethic, I work harder than anybody, even still today at 84, just turned 84 2 weeks ago, actually, at November the 1st. And, so I get up at 5:30 in the morning, and even now, and then and usually work at least 12 hours a day, and I love every minute of it. And I get up at 5:30. I always make my bed, and I always think I'm late, and so and that's still what I do today. And so today, yeah, did you build your mill, John? Yes, I did. So it took me start coming here, was not couldn't speak the language, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job. And then 25, 47. And but then I got a job as a cleanup man, then a lumber pilot. But I always had the dream. And a lot of people didn't understand why. What is he doing? Why is he so preoccupied, so intense about the things that he's doing? But they didn't understand. I was already building my mill. It was not if or when, it's what would it would look like. I already developed the stationery and the name of the company and all of that. So and within a year and a half, I was the superintendent of one of the larger lumber mills here. Within 2 years, I was part owner of a small little mill, and but that didn't go fast enough for me. And then started all over again, and then Prince George, which is for the guests watching us from around the world. British Columbia is a beautiful province, obviously, and big province. And everybody knows the big city, Vancouver. Well, we are 500 miles, or for our European friends, 800 kilometers north of Prince George, of Vancouver. And that's where I've been right here for 60 years. And so,
Is that up by Whistler? Is it close to
no,
Whistler?
Whistler would be close to Vancouver.
Hmm.
It's just before the Rocky Mountain range that runs through there, the coastal Rocky Mountains. Whistler is probably about 2 hours, 2.5 hours driving from Vancouver. We are about 10 hours further north.
So
And
would you consider yourself a lumber baron or a conglomerate magnate? What are you with all these different companies and corporations? What have you built for yourself here?
I think I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm a dreamer, and I have a vision of where do I want to go. Like even if I'm sitting here talking to you today, I already am planning on doubling the size of my. I have 4 silos. The one silo is lumber manufacturing. We are the largest secondary manufacturer of lumber in North America. We want to double that in size in the next 5 years. Then at the same time, I'm in warehousing. We're the largest warehousing company in Northern British Columbia, and I will double that in size in the next 5 years. The other part is we are also a developer, both residential, commercial, and industrial, one of the largest ones here in British Columbia. And then I'm also very active in media, and obviously, and as you already know, in podcasting, we are very, very active. I believe that have close to $700,000 subscribers on YouTube, and close to 22 million globally. And and I'm in the process of developing a platform that will start next spring. And hopefully by then, we will be well over 1 million subscribers on YouTube and other. It's an amazing platform, amazing the new media, which is podcasting and all the things surrounding it. And especially for me, I'm probably the oldest podcaster, certainly in North America, I think, and obviously quite successful, and I love it. So that's kind of what I like about it. And I'm a visionary. And so what I do is I always look forward. Where will we be 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now? And then,
That's one of the things they said about Disney, and people would say, I went to a conference with a guy named Mike Vance, and Mike Vance was Walt Disney's right-hand creative man, and that's how Disney's mind never stopped. And people would say, "Gosh, do you think that Walt Disney would have known what Walt Disney World would have become?" And they said, "Of course, he already
yeah,
saw it. He already
yeah,
saw it in his mind. I mean, and
exactly.
your mind seems to work that way, huh?"
Mine does, and it's interesting, Gary, that you say that because I showed you I'm also ADHD. I call it a superpower. And one of the things is unique with me is that I was not very good at the traditional schooling format, but I was very good at numbers, and I was a very good reader and write, not a reader, a writer. And so I have ADHD and dyslexia, but if you say to me what makes me different, I'm a visionary. So I'm building my companies already, and so that I know where we are going, and that preoccupies me even now, still virtually every day. Be moving forward and saying, are we moving forward? What are we doing? Where do we go next? And if things are difficult and challenging as they are right now in North America, to a certain extent, then what can we do about it? Where do we fit in? What else can we do? Where can we be different? And so
I I'm gonna squirrel here, but I want to go back. There's so much interesting about you I want to talk about, but just because you're in this business and it affects you, I don't know for sure, what's going on with climate change? I don't want to say the climate change issue, but I mean the climate change, uh, the governing of the climate change and the new rules regarding climate change and all this. How is that affecting you with all these businesses being up in the north like that?
I believe climate change is a reality that is part of what we are now. And it becomes a question of it's not something that we can turn the knob and say, okay, now we go the other direction. It takes time, and it best to bring the public on board in reality. And I believe we closely be going in that direction. Let's hope it's fast enough. But we can see already the adverse effects of it happening around the world. We are lucky in northern British Columbia that it's been raining here a lot. Winter is not the way it used to be. When I came here in 1965 to northern British Columbia, coming from Holland, if you ask me about the climate in Holland, then I would say the rain is colder in the winter, more or less. When I came here in 1965, it was common to see 30, 40 below zero at least 2 or 3 times a winter. Was not uncommon for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, sometimes. We don't see that right now. Like we are virtually in the middle of January, and we have had a little bit last week of 20 below zero, but only for a couple of days. And for the rest, even today, there is some snow outside, but it's not winter. And those things are concerning.
Mhm.
And obviously, part of that is climate change and what we do to it. The other one is evolution in some form or fashion. But I believe we are fortunate here. But if I look at North America, look at Texas, Florida, California, and how they are being affected by climate change dramatically different than it is for us at this point.
Hmm.
But
Okay.
it's on my mind very much so.
Yeah. Do you find that the timber is similar than it was when you started? Do you find that that is it affecting the timber, the amount of timber, the quality of timber?
It probably is to a certain extent. Disease probably is more frequent than it would have been before, for a number of reasons. But the everything is affected by it, but not to the same extent when I see the things that are happening in the United States and in some of the other areas in Africa, in Asia, in some places, it's very dramatic, and we will all be affected by it, direct or indirectly.
Okay. So I want to get back to you. I just I squirrel sometimes. I just made me think of that with you being up there and all that sort of stuff. So obviously you're very healthy and you take care of yourself, your mind and your body. How long have you been how long have you been into fitness and bodybuilding? And I mean, did you always plan to live this long? Did you I'm going to be healthier as a horse into my 90s and beyond here?
Yeah, so very good question, Gary, is that I'm 84, so what happens to us, and I was no different than anybody else, although I'm lucky, my wife is a vegetarian. I didn't always listen to her as well as I could and should have until I got in 2008, when I was 68, I got a case of diverticulitis. I don't know if you know what it is. For those people that are listening that don't know, if you say to me, I got pain on my right side, I'm not a dog. Then I would say potentially your appendix. If you have it on the left side, then it could be diverticulitis or your colon. So I got a case of diverticulitis and it breached my colon and toxins went through my body. And uh, I have a high threshold for pain. That's not good. And so you have about 48 hours before that starts attacking other organs and you may not live. And so I got to the hospital in Prince George. I still don't know how I ever made it through the airport. I just hung on by the rails on the side, something that I'm a go-go guy, but it would normally take me 5 minutes, took me 20 minutes, that I was worried I would go on my knees and somebody would call 911. And I didn't want that. So I came to the hospital here, and then they did an operation. They took 20 centimeters out of my colon. And the doc said to me the following morning, you came this close. So then I started to take a very close look at what I'm doing. That was 2008. And in 2009, after I recovered from the operation physically, I went to the gym. I got a trainer because my life is like a lot of other people that are in business, is meetings, and it has to be a meeting structure for me. Then I will not miss it because that's my life. And I got a trainer and started working with the trainer. The other thing is I started to listen to my wife in terms of being a vegetarian, but I became vegan. I say 80-20. And so from that point forward, now nearly 15 years ago, that after I had been training for about 6 months, and by then I was already in my 70s, somebody came up to us in the gym and they say, hey, John, have you ever thought about competing? I said, me? Yeah. And I said, why not? So that's what I did. I started working towards competing. That's a picture of me. That's how I look today. That's how I looked when I went for training. And I then started competing. First in Northern British Columbia, came in second bodybuilding, third in physique. Then provincially came in third in physique, second in bodybuilding, qualified me for the nationals and the Arnolds. Then what happened is COVID came, and that kind of
Mm.
slowed me down a bit, and couldn't go to the Arnold's, and so now again 6 8 months ago, after the COVID was over, I'm again in the gym at 84, and when I'm 85, I'm again want to go to the Arnold's, so and and I'm the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America, and I love it. So that to me is very, very important. And then at the same time, diet to me has become what is important to me to keep it in a simple form is saying, I want to get sunshine. Vitamin D is very important for me. I like to get between 7 and 9 hours sleep a night. That's very important to me. Then going to the gym or getting exercise is very important to me. And then I'm very conscientious about what I eat, diet, and all the other things, very, very important to me. And I don't do abuse stuff. I don't take toxins, hands full of chemicals. I don't know what they are. I don't do that. And then the other part, I don't drink, I don't smoke, and do all the other dumb stuff, so I try to stay fit, and so for people watching us, I'm I say keep it simple. Get exercise. Watch out for your diet. And then you don't have to become a bodybuilder or go to the Olympics. For me, it worked because I enjoyed it. And then I was the oldest one around, being as fortunate as I was. But even for those that say, well, I can't do that, but then go for a walk. Start out with half an hour a day. Take a partner or a friend, or even better yet, your wife, and then what will happen. Watch out for your diet. And all of a sudden, what will happen to you is what happened to me is saying, hey, Gary, hey, John, what are you doing? You're looking so great. What are you doing? And all of a sudden, it's working. And so that, because we already know from all the people around us, the last decade of life, people get all these diseases that happen, and all of a sudden, during the time that they should be still fit, hopefully, they can't because of all kinds of reasons that they have, and that's so extremely unfortunate. And so what I'm saying is simply stay active, do something you enjoy. And then in my case, my wife, Sharon, she was natural, the very conscientious about diet, and is very, very important for me.
We find that people as they age, uh, I'm not quite to your age yet, but I'm 62. They think that they worry about doing too much because exerting themselves or whatever. But what they really need to understand is the more they work their body, the stronger they're going to get. The bones will get stronger by doing a little bit of lifting, a little bit of cardio is great, but the weight work, working with a little bit of weights, will really strengthen those bones. And since as we get older, it's the fall risk of breaking something that is so scary for older people. But if they just did that little bit of weight work, it could change their whole physiology in their life.
And if they look at my johnabrink.com, my website, they can see me working out in the gym. And so what I do is weight training. And so doesn't mean that although I can do better than most 20-year-olds likely,
I'm
but that's
sure.
not the point. The point is staying, make it, if you do weight in particular, it will do all the things that you mentioned. It creates muscle, it creates strength for your bones, all the things that every so often, especially here in northern British Columbia, snow on the ground, you fall, And so I don't think anything of it if I slip or because but for a lot of other people that I know and is they break a hip, and then that is usually the beginning of the end. And
So your whole your whole world is seems to be pretty disciplined. And do you think that has a lot to do with the ADHD? Is that you think that's your superpower, and does that keep you more focused? You because you need to be a little more focused, or is it just a naturally? It's just your burning thing since you were so young.
Yeah, so what I do is, as you already noticed, is that attitude, passion, work ethic is me. Like even sitting here with you, I have the passion, I have the positive attitude, and I'm not a bitcher or complainer, and and at the same time, I'm a realist in saying that what would be immensely rewarding for me, and that's why I do a lot of the podcasting that I do. If people can look at me and they get an inspiration from what I do, not becoming the bodybuilder of North American competition. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm simply saying is that find something that you like to do. That's what I did. I like to do it. And now I go to the gym. I like going to the gym. I do. And I work hard when I'm there. And the same applies to diet. There's a lot of people that say, I'm working out, but I don't like it. Well, then stay the course, right? And as you stay the course and make it part of your life, you will start enjoying it, especially if you say, Hey, Gary, my God, what are you doing? You look great. Then it gives you that positive feeling. The same as diet. Like as I said, my wife is a vegetarian. I'm close to that actually. I'm vegan, but I do all the shopping. And if I go to the store, I stay on the outside, inside the store, because I don't want the prepared foods, super prepared that I have no idea what is in it. And so I try to think about careful about what do I eat and what should be part. And again, that part is not complicated. And as you do it,
I like the line about a supermarket where people say, well, if you have a health food section of the supermarket, what does that make the rest of the crap? Right? That means it's the
exactly,
unhealthful part of the supermarket, right? So
exactly.
yeah, you have to stay on the outside ring, buddy. I mean, that's where you have to stay. The fruits, the vegetables, the healthy produce, and all stuff like that. So I want to get back to the ADHD though, because that's so important. I think we're in a world of participation medals. There it is, unlocked. I love that. And it's your superpower. But we're in the era of participation medals. Oh, don't worry about it. Don't try so hard. It's okay. I'm here to help you. You don't have to struggle, blah 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 blah, right? So people look for any excuse to not succeed because it's so easy to not succeed in our society. It's so acceptable, right? So you took your ADHD and made it your superpower. That's
Correct.
awesome.
So what happened to me, Gary, and I think that may be interesting, is that I had no idea of that. Why did I fail grade three and then fail grade seven three times? I do a lot of presenting to people. And the other day I did a presentation where it was probably about 200 people. And I said, I failed grade C. I don't know anybody that failed grade C. And a lady in the back said, I failed grade C. It's okay, just the two of us then. But the point is this one is that it took me all this time to know, oh, who am I? Why am I different? And I challenged me. And then one day I picked up a book in a store here in Prince George. And the title of, I don't know why I picked up the book. The title of the book is Driven to Distraction. written by Dr. Halliwell.
What was the name of the book?
Driven to Distraction.
Driven to Destruction. Okay. Okay.
Written by Dr. Halliwell. Dr. Halliwell has written 18 books, 5 on distraction. Dr. Halliwell, Professor Halliwell, is ADHD and has dyslexia. So now my podcast number that I'm at now, what is my podcast number that I'm at? 360? I'm at about 360 or so. And for a guest watching that may be interested in it is my podcast number 203 is an interview, a podcast with Dr. Halliwell. Now, Dr. Halliwell wrote the book, Driven to Distraction, in 1993. I bought the book in 1997, and I have it in my studio that I do all my podcasting. I'm in one of my corporate offices here. But I would show you the book, and I opened the first page, and I wrote in Dutch, January 1997, now I finally know who I am. So this was 1997. So I was 57 years old already. Then it took me, I was ashamed of it. It took me 5 years of checking out what is it all about, going to Google and doing all the things and reading about it. And so I went to my doc, who delivered our 2 daughters, but also was a personal friend in 1960, 5 years after that. I was then 62. And I walked into his office. And he said, "Hey, John, why are you here?" I said, "I think I got ADHD. Let me check that out." And yes, I do. The point I'm making is this one, that the time that I failed grade 7 for the 3rd time, I was not quite 13 yet. My birthday is November the 1st in school, ended in June or July. So I was still about 12 years old. So for 50 years, Gary, 50 years, I knew I was different. I was called everything from dumb, stupid, and he doesn't have brains. He should be, find a laborer job of some sort that, and he's not going to amount. My parents didn't say that, or my brother and sister didn't, but some people said, and I wondered myself about who am I? So to leave to go to Canada, start with absolutely nothing, and then have $25 and 47 cents. There was no question in my mind. I would build a lumber mill. There was no question in my mind about it. It was not if, but when. And when couldn't be quick enough from my perspective. And so those 50 years, I was sitting there a lot of times wondering, who am I? And if I can do anything at all. And that's why I wrote a book and I speak about ADHD. I had to understand it. I could not have done what I did if it were not for ADHD. And I'm convinced that it is, and it can be a superpower. And I believe it is extremely important. Now, the other part about it, and just to follow up a little bit on this, when I had my podcast with Dr. Halliwell, is that I came to the conclusion that initially I thought maybe 8% of the population ADHD. But the more I found out, and then when I talked to Dr. Halliwell, I felt it was much higher than that. So I suggested to Dr. Halliwell, in my opinion, he's the expert, not me, that probably 20% of the population ADHD. He said, "No, John, probably 25%. I agree with him. Now, the other thing that I found is that I've been involved with, boards of directors and other companies, and I've interacted with a lot of very bright individuals, entrepreneurs, business people, and boards. And I came to the conclusion that in my mind, and I suggested to Dr. Helliwell, that 50% of the successful, and the operative is successful, entrepreneurs are ADHD. He said, no, John, 75%. I agree with him. So the way I look at now, Gary, is that male, female show it differently, ADHD, but the frequency of occurrence is likely male and female, same, is probably close to 30% of the population. And so it is, and it should not be looked at as a deficiency or a negative, but as a potential positive. And I believe that part is very, very important. And that is one of the reasons that I wrote this book, is that and
I
and
have a number of friends and a family member who are in the pharmaceutical industry, and one of their children was brilliant. Um, but they decided that she was too hyper and she couldn't focus in class, and it was because she had ADHD and so on and so forth. So they started medicating her. I was absolutely mortified and against it because she's brilliant, and she just the classes bored her because she's brilliant. Now she's gone on to become a surgeon. She's just finished residency. She's a exceptional doctor. Um, what do you think about taking these children and immediately trying to kill the thing that's their superpower?
now I have to be careful because I'm not a doc,
Yeah, I
so
know.
and
Yeah.
and my personal opinion is no, I don't take medicine for it. I it is for me what it is, and I like it. And so it makes me different in some areas, but if I kill it, the thing that drives me, the energy that I get from it, then I become dormant, and I don't want to be that. That's not me. That's what gets me up at 5:30 in the morning, and I make my bed and I think I'm late. And that's what me is, even at 84, every day to me is an amazing day. And I avoid people that are negative, and I go positive and I go forward. And I feel I have an obligation to share that with other young people in particular. And I had a good example of, I sent a lot of these books away for free, and I sent them to some of the city elders and government, and and I did a presentation west of Prince George, and a fella came up to me and he said, I was just having dinner. He said, after you finish with your dinner, I'm sitting down there. Would you be able to talk to me about something? I said, sure. And so I did that, and I went over to him, and then he said, you send me one of your books, and I have a 15-year-old boy that has had a lot of challenges and struggles, and we read it together.
That's awesome.
Can you
That's awesome.
believe it? My God. And it changed his life.
That's awesome. That's
How
awesome.
can, how can it? And that's why, even when although I don't make it, I'm a very good presenter. And, and so if I do presentations, I usually, and maybe on business, but I always mix in ADHD. And if I talk about that, in some of the presentations, after I'm done with it, I usually ask, is there anybody here that has ADHD that are diagnosed or maybe think they do, or blah, blah, blah? And then several hands go up all over the place. And then after I'm done with it, there are a lot of people say, damn, I wish I had it too.
Well, if you look at the people, my son, one of my sons is in the Air Force. He's stationed in Maryland. The other son is my business partner, and we meet every day. And we were having that conversation just today. We were talking about some very famous people that are that we know of, Elon Musk and Bill Gates and things like that. And we were talking about, you know, when you listen to them and how they think and how their minds work, they're obviously different, right? I mean, there's obviously something that's different. Your mind obviously works different than most, and and you've taken what would have been devastating to most children, and especially in today's day and age, who knows what would have happened if someone, failed, you know, different grades the way that you did. But you've taken that and you've empowered yourself. But you say it took 50 years. So during that 50 years, was it a struggle for you? Were you searching, or were you just moving forward? You're just empowering yourself. You didn't focus on it too hard.
Good question. I knew that I was different, but I had no idea until I picked up that book.
Mm.
January of 1997 in that store here in Prince George. I still, if you would be in my studio, I would say, this is the book, Gary. You can see it's how wore out. And here is where I wrote in Dutch because I was ashamed of it. I had no idea. I had never even heard of it. ADHD, I had no idea what it was. But as soon as I saw it, I said, now I finally know who I am.
Yeah.
It took me 50 years to get to the diagnosis. 40, 50s, 62 years, I should say, is that 57 to when I picked up the book, 5 years to talk to my doc about it and got the diagnosis. And then, then all of a sudden everything changed for me. I started to write books. I'm a good author. I'm working on my fifth and sixth book. I I'm a presenter. I know I'm very good at what I do. I have an amazing memory because I'm not a good reader. Reading to me is not natural. I'm a good writer, but not a good reader. And but I can do presentations. After I do a presentation, and I do several of them, they will never forget me.
That I can believe. Now, you said two things that stuck out for me, and they're very basic things. They're not barn burners, but to me they're special. And one was look inside, and then later you said discover yourself. And you were already very successful when you quote unquote discovered yourself, but then it went to a whole nother level with you. Like you said, you started the workout, you started the writing the books. It went to a whole nother level. I mean, that's pretty amazing, really. I mean, when you think about it, because you had already achieved, you were already going, but it took you to another level. Was it because now you had peace within yourself? He says, I've got the answer now. I feel at peace.
Yeah. Who am I? Was my question for all those years. Who am I? Why am I different? And why did I fail grade 3 and grade 7? In tongue in cheek a little bit is that, and as I mentioned that, so people ask me, did it bother you that you failed grade 7 3 times? I said, yeah, it does. It still does even today, very much so. Oh, did you say, wow, yeah, I said it still does today. I should have quit earlier. The point is simply this one, Gary, is that it never stopped me from learning.
Yeah.
And I'm very good at what I do. And a lot of people that are being trained in business by universities and all the other kind of places, they have a system they follow in a box that you do. And I do that too, but I'm outside of the box always. I say, why not this? Why not that? How about this? How about that? I scare them,
Hmm.
because I look at it differently. My approach to it is different. And but I'm very knowledgeable about all the things that are going on around the world, and I have an interest in it. But I'm just not very good at having somebody indoctrinate me, sitting in a school and hear all kinds of things that I have absolutely no interest in.
Hmm. You've been amazing, and times just went blazing by. I just have so many things, but I want to respect your time. Um, so I always finish the podcast with another question. I give you the first "what if you could" question because that's a no-brainer. But I always ask people towards the end of the podcast, because, like I said, you've been so kind with your time. Um, if there was a message that you had for our guests, a saying, a thought, something that means a lot to you that you would like to leave us with, what would that thought be for us, for our listeners?
The most important part to me has been my foundation, attitude, avoid the negative at all costs. I don't want to have it around me. Passion, find things that you like and love to do and become good at it. And then the other one is work ethic, is that develop a discipline of working hard, but will follow absolutely is success. And so it is, and let me be the example that if I can do it, virtually anybody can do it. But I did have is I was driven, but what could have happened for 50 years while I was wondering who am I, that some people would have gone down, where I didn't do that, I wound up. And I believe the reason that I did is attitude, passion, work ethic is always been my foundation. The other part, very, very important, is give back to your community, become part of it. And I've always done that. I already did that in Holland, and I've always done it here. And then give back to people around you. Like I'm writing the books that I have. I will send them to you. If you give Scott your address, then I will sign four of the four books here that I have,
I
and I
love
will
that. I love
and I will
books.
send them to you.
You know,
And
John,
and
if I may, I have to add one more thing to your board. I
okay,
mean, those three things are obviously super important, and they've taken you what you were. But there's also something about you, just from reading up on you and spending time with you, is you never stop. You don't let things stop you. You don't let people stop you. You don't let things stop you. You don't let circumstances stop you. You
yeah,
have your vision.
yes,
John Brink has his vision, and he's
correct.
not going to let anything stop him. And
No,
I think that's so empowering. Of the three are obviously brilliant, but you just won't stop, my friend. I mean, you won't let things stop you, and that's such an amazing power.
yeah, and annoys some people, but that's who I am. You say, when is this guy gonna stop? So but no,
Well, I
it's
don't want to sit in it. I don't think I want to sit in a board meeting with you and be on the other side of an issue. I, I
I'm
think I'm going to lose
articulate.
that one.
I I'm very articulate, but it can be painful.
I love it. I love it. John Brink, you've been amazing. I could talk to you forever. But again, I just want to respect your time, and I'm so grateful for this. So we've got the workout, we've got the corporations, we've got everything you're building. We have the books. What's next for John Brink? What are we going to see amazing out of you next?
I'm going to say, Ife, I love podcasting. I think it is unbelievable and so new still. It is just exploding. And I love doing podcasting because as you and me are sitting here communicating, where if I do presentations in the States or wherever I do presentations, I get a couple hundred, couple of 500, 600 people there. But here, while we are doing this, we know already tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people will watch us in this conversation. Immensely powerful. So I intend to be part of this. And I want to take it one step further to a platform. And that's my objective.
I love it. Now, where can we find you, real quick, before we sign off? Where can we find John Brink?
John A. Brink, as in Aaron Adam, or abrink.com.
And all your stuff there. So we're going to link everything to the podcast. We're going to
Correct.
link the link to your books, to your website, to everything about you. And John, thank you so much. It's invaluable. I couldn't pay you for your time. I'm just so grateful that you came on and shared this with us. I really am.
It was a pleasure, Garen, and let's make sure we stay in touch. And Scott will have your address, and we'll sign the books and we'll send them to you. And then, if we send them to you, I want you to also give us a review of the books if you can. That will be helpful to us. And then, for all those people watching us, make sure that you subscribe to Gary's podcast and other people's podcast. That encourages us to do podcasting and create more interesting podcasting, both for Gary and for myself.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, everybody. Listen,
Okay.
you've got exposed to the amazing Mr. John A. Brink. So grateful for his time. And yes, please like, subscribe, share, whatever works for both of us. And we'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Gary. Peace.
Thanks again for joining us on another episode of What If You Could podcast. Please subscribe, like, share, and give us any feedback. We'd love to hear it. And remember, if you can dream it, you can do it. See you next time.